What we like, the Alpha. The Romeo Giulia that we mentioned in the introduction to this long-term test provides an interesting counterpoint to this Jaguar XE. The Giulia has become the new standard for a driver's sedan in the category. We really like it. But this update is about the Jaguar XE, which is likable in many ways that are similar to what we admire about the Giulia. Both cars have strong brakes, steering that feels delightfully alive, and a communicative and well-balanced chassis that provides abundant grip. Yet the Jaguar feels cruder than the Alpha, it drives much bigger and requires more of its driver, while the Giulia is simply more precise. The Jaguar's supercharged power and rip-snorting exhaust please us like a muscle car does. The turbocharged Giulia is more akin to a sports car. Both sedans are fetching on the outside and somewhat devoid of style inside, although we can certainly imagine some buyers being attracted to the minimalism of their cockpits. Overall, we're just happy that in this era of crossover creep and technology overrun that some car makers are still prioritizing sports sedan fundamentals and getting them right. What we don't like, not everyone on staff is willing to endure the Jag's stiff ride, which is exacerbated by its optional 20-inch wheels. That ride is beginning to take its toll on the interior pieces as well, some of which have begun to rattle. We're also fed up with the way the Jag's stop-start system resets itself to on every time you fire the engine, in part because it is designed to automatically shut off the car if the driver's seatbelt is unbuckled or if his or her door is opened while the transmission is in drive or neutral. This is called the driver exit feature. Whoever at JLR dreamed up that operational intelligence might also be responsible for the seat control button on the dashboard, which does not actually control the front seat's temperature but merely brings up the seat controls page on the touchscreen. Annoyances like this and the impending end of our tour with the XE mean that those who do enjoy the car have conceded that they are not likely to convince anyone else at this point. One logbook entry sums it up thusly: I'd not recommend it to anyone, and yet I want to buy it. What went wrong? More flat tires. When we last left our hero car in mid-June, we had just replaced its 6th and 7th damaged pilot. Well, we soon picked up a nail in the left rear tire, which proved to be repairable. However, it led us to discover that two of our 20-inch wheels, the ones with summer performance tires, were bent. This seems like as good a time as any to mention that we also have a spare set of all-season tires on 19-inch wheels that we have deployed on more than one occasion to keep the Jag on the road. This was one of those times. 1 week and 755 miles later, with the bent wheels repaired and the nail removed, we remounted the performance tires. Then in early October we got another pair of flats, both front tires this time, and bent a rim again, bringing the total number of tires we've destroyed in 30,000 miles to 9. Also, back in late August, we noticed that the left rear turn signal wasn't working. But apparently making an appointment with the dealer was all we needed to do to fix the problem, because the following morning the flasher was working just fine. Similarly, the tire pressure monitoring system went awry, signaling a fault when all the tires were actually doing just fine, for once. Then the fault light went out, all on its own. Where we went, never farther than Indianapolis, which is only 266 miles from Ann Arbor, although we prefer to take I-69, which tacks on 11 extra miles but allows us to avoid driving through Ohio. What we like, when cars fix themselves. Remember the noises we kept hearing from under the Jaguar's hood, detailed in our last update? We're not hearing them anymore. Various staffers had thought they might be coming from the supercharger, or something rattling around in the intake manifold, or maybe a pulley bearing. In our last update, the dealer replaced a pulley and both fuel pumps, and yet the gravelly noise didn't disappear. Well, at least not right away. Because here we are, thousands of miles and months later, and either we've developed Stockholm Syndrome or the car isn't sounding so defective now. There's still a fair bit of supercharger whine, and you'd never confuse the XE's intake sound with that of a Lexus, or a Porsche, for that matter, but it doesn't sound like anything is amiss. Maybe now those of us who really like driving the XE can convince the ones who have been avoiding the car to give it another chance. What we don't like, barely P0s, at least not on this car. Let's count how many of these 20-inch tires we've destroyed. The first came right out of the box, when we bubbled a sidewall on the right front shortly after the XE's arrival at our offices. Then we had the same thing happen not long after. Then in May we hit a pothole in a construction zone that flattened the right front, ripping open the sidewall, while also bubbling the right rear. 1 month later, both right side tires went down again, victimized by some railroad tracks. So that's 6. Add to that the single 19-inch Soto Zero winter tire that was damaged by a pothole in March, and it makes 7. Lucky us. What went wrong? Other than all the flat tires, the XE has not given us much trouble. We had our 16,000 mile service oil change, pole and filter replacement, track credens retook performed gratis, thanks to JAG's complimentary scheduled maintenance policy. Our satellite radio subscription has been restored, which we were thankfully able to do ourselves without going to the dealer. But the infotainment system has also continued its strange behavior. One day, out of the blue, it displayed this message over the map: petrol stations are near. It seemed like the car was deploying some Google Assistant-like technology to help the driver find a place to refuel, except that the car already had a full tank. Where we went, not enough places. The XE's smallish backseat makes it more suited to commuting than to road tripping. Plus, those annoying underhood noises and the JAG's propensity to annihilate its own tires have limited our desire to take the XE on any long excursions. So it has seen northern Michigan a few times and southern Wisconsin once, but hasn't made it any farther afield than Kentucky. What we like, driving the XE is always a pleasurable experience. The steering has earned praise for its feedback, and the car feels balanced and agile. Its dynamic driving mode is truly dynamic. It's almost like a completely different car, wrote one driver enamored with the JAG's instant throttle response. The car puts down the power well, with an all-wheel drive system that is calibrated to do more than just deploy the extra set of driven wheels as a safety measure once traction starts to go away. Of course, the AWD system also works well in the snow and ice, and with the 19-inch Biley Soto Zero winter tires we fitted in November, assisted by the JAG's dedicated rain ice snow mode, the XE has proved tank-like. Most of the staff is into the look of the black Venom wheels against the British racing green body colour, and the understated design is appealing, especially when the XE is parked next to a more extroverted machine, such as a new Lexus. What we don't like, the buggy infotainment system plagued the car for months before we were able to get the unit replaced and the software upgraded under warranty. Even afterward, it takes forever to boot up, and we have experienced intermittent crashes. We mentioned that it's winter here, but did we explain that the CTO controls are accessible only through the center touchscreen? The rest of the dash also leaves us cold figuratively, as there's too much plastic for a luxury car interior. And then there are the sounds, all manner of whirring racket coming from under the hood, like an industrial meat slicer that has gone out of balance. Rever and the supercharged V6 to 6,800 revolutions per minute, and you'll be happy the fuel cuts off, rescuing your ears from the vibrational noise. What went wrong? The aforementioned noise issue led us to visit the dealership 3 times. The first time, we were told it was a bad idler pulley, but we had to come back to have a new one installed. At least we got some other recall work done during the 4 days it was at service, including replacing a hose to the fuel vapor canister and updating the software for the powertrain control module. After the second trip and the replacement pulley, the engine still didn't sound right. Another trip to the service bay found bad fuel pumps that took nearly 2 weeks to replace, and then when we picked up the car it sounded the same. The dealer wrenches told us they had driven our car back to back with an identical one, so we were left with the cliched explanation that they all do that. Meanwhile, our infotainment system repair was backburnered. It finally got addressed in a separate visit to a different dealer, which took 3 days to complete because the techs were unable to update the software. They eventually replaced the entire infotainment unit before returning the car fixed. Now our satellite radio does not work, as apparently the trial subscription was not transferred. Where we went, other than the dealer. Just Ohio, which is even more miserable and also likely to drain your wallet.